You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us this week, as always, because we're going to talk about building and growing and monetizing your online platform, taking your idea for a platform or your passion, turning it into a platform and earning a paycheck from it. That's what we talk about here each and every week. Our subject this week, and I'm super excited to talk about this together, is this idea of finding time, location, and financial freedom through an online business, through your message based online platform. So that's what we're going to spend our time talking about this week. I will make mention of this before we get into this week's content. I just want to encourage you to stop over to platformlaunchers.com because we got a whole bunch of stuff over there. We got our free 21-day platform development planning guide, but I also want to highlight something very specific over there, and that is a 48-hour video pass that allows you to have access to the hundreds of hours of video content that will literally teach you how to build, grow, and monetize your online platform for just $7. If you go over to platformlaunchers.com, you can obtain a pass for a 48-hour unlimited viewing video pass. So if you've got some time coming up, you got a long weekend, anything like that coming up, just stop over to platformlaunchers.com, go to the university page, scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, and you'll see the opportunity to take that video tour, that video pass, unlimited video for 48 hours, and it's just $7, and you could access literally our entire video training library. And I think that's a bargain. So hopefully you'll check that out, and it's certainly something that we're happy to provide. But now, that being said, this week our subject is it's all about finding time, location, and financial freedom through an online business. And I guess I'll start off like this. To go back in your mind to the very first time you used the internet. Think about that. Can you remember the very first time you used the internet? The internet is just so, I don't know, just so much part of everything that maybe it's even hard to think about the first time that we actually used it. And now for many people, the internet's been part of their life just about as long as they can remember. That's certainly the case for all four of my children, and they're all adults now. Our youngest just turned 18, and for their entire lives, our 24-year-old, our 22-year-old, our 20-year-old, our 18-year-old, they've had internet access. That's just been part of their life from day one. And but some of us predate this current era, and we remember what it was like for the internet to be a new and novel thing. And I remember the very first time I used the internet, it was utilizing a friend's account. He had an account, and he was at work, and there was a work computer, and he said, "Hey, you want to try this out?" And I was actually worked at a bookstore, and I'd stopped over at the bookstore, and he said, "You want to try this out?" And he was explaining to me that he had internet access, and he wanted to show me how it worked. And he showed me some of the basics, like how to find web pages. And then he also said, "There's also these text chats where people just type in a response, and people from all over the world comment on these things." And he said, "So here's how you interact with others via chat." And I was amazed by it. I was like, "No, wait a second. This is people seeing this all in real time. Like if I type something here, somebody's going to see this in real time all throughout the world." I had a hard time at first wrapping my mind around the fact that people from all over the world could see what I was typing the very second I posted it. And so that was a new novel thing for me. And I remember being very entertained by that. Well, it didn't take long after discovering the internet for me to be just kind of curious about other things that you could do with it. And I actually started wondering how I might be able to earn an income online. And it was something that I thought there's got to be a way to do that. And I wasn't exactly sure how to do that. And it wasn't something that I succeeded at doing truthfully for quite a while. But and when you look back at the early days of the internet, the pathways toward earning an income back during that era weren't as clear as they are now. But I knew that entrepreneurial people weren't going to take too terribly long to figure it out. And people figured it out. People discovered pathways and good ways that you can earn an income online. And since that time, I have learned multiple ways to make an income online. And so I'm happy to utilize in present day multiple approaches. And I bring that up not so much to talk about the methods. There are plenty of episodes of this podcast where I talk about the methods, and you can look through the archives and you can look at all the different ways that we've talked about creating audio content and video content and written content and using affiliates and courses and monetization in all kinds of ways. That's all in the archive. Definitely check it out. But I bring it up this week, not again, not so much to talk about the methods, but to encourage you to think about the benefits of earning an income from your online platform or your online business. Because I've discovered, as have many others, that a successful online business eventually contributes to three forms of freedom. As your online platform grows, as your online business grows, you will eventually begin to enjoy time freedom, which also goes along very nicely with location freedom. And that comes right alongside financial freedom. The three of those things tend to work hand in hand. They tend to be very effective, they tend to be very friendly toward each other. So, all I want to do during our time this week, our remaining time, is daydream a little bit together. And I'll just ask you, I'm going to ask a few questions in just a moment here, and they're going to kind of prompt certain aspects of this daydreaming that we're going to do. But right now, I just want you to take a moment to dream with me just for a few minutes and allow me to ask a few questions to help prime the pump of your dreams. I would like you, if you're listening to this podcast right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, I would like you to experience time freedom and location freedom and financial freedom. And again, what we're doing inside Platform Launchers is all geared to help contribute toward that. But for it to work, you have to want it as much for yourself, just as much as I want it for you. I want that for you. If that's something that you're utilizing this content to help learn how this all works, well, I'm grateful that we're able to help you with that, and I certainly want you to experience those things. But you have to want it for yourself just as much as I want it for you. So now let's spend a few moments just dreaming together about this. And I'm going to ask us four questions that I think can kind of prime the pump of our dreams when we think about the benefits of time, location, and financial freedom. And question number one is this. Very simply, it's a good starter question here. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your life to look like? Now, I'm sure at present there are aspects of your daily life that you would like to keep the same, maybe even forever if you could, no matter what. But there are probably a few things along the way here that you'd like to change when it becomes something that's within your power to do so. Developing an online platform can give you options that can drastically change what your life looks like. In general, I find it personally helpful to begin dreaming about the life I want to lead because doing so helps me to begin crafting the approach I think I need to take to help me get where I'm dreaming about going. So I just want to start off with the question, what do you want your life to look like? Give yourself permission to dream about it. Give yourself a little permission to dream about what you want the next season of your life to look like. There is, if by God's grace He allows you to live, there is going to be a next season of life. So, what do you want that next season of life to look like? Having kind of a dream about that and some thoughts about that can actually help motivate you to take intentional actions that will help you get there. But that leads me to a more specific question, and that's question two. Question two is this. What would you like your work schedule to look like? What would you like your work schedule to look like? Now, I have nothing against traditional schedules, and I have nothing against traditional forms of employment because I actually think they're highly beneficial. And I think that they can be an extremely useful tool to rely on, particularly when you're in the process of building a dream career that often starts off with a lot of instability. When you're building something new, it doesn't start off typically with a sure footing. It's got some instability early on. So I'm a big fan of traditional incomes and traditional schedules that help build what we're trying to build here, that help contribute to that stability. But if you could dictate what your daily and weekly schedule looked like, how would you arrange it? What would you decide to do? What would you want it to look like? I think most people, particularly during their working years, will never entertain this thought. I'm bringing up this subject here, but many will never entertain this thought because they don't even view it as even a possible option for them. And it's possible that it may never cross their mind because they're completely acclimated to working a 9 to 5 every day with weekends and holidays off. And again, that's totally fine. Maybe as you're listening to me right now, maybe you're comfortable with that arrangement and wouldn't want to change it. Or maybe that's not the case. Maybe you would want to alter that to some degree. And so I guess a follow-up to this would be, what time would you like to wake up in the morning if you had the power to decide when your day began? And how would you structure your morning activities if you didn't have a boss telling you what you needed to do? What would you build? What would you write? What would you record? What would you create if you were completely in charge of your work schedule? So that's the second part of the dream. The second part, or the second question that I'm asking as we're dreaming together about this concept of time, location, and financial freedom, what would you like your work schedule to look like? But here's number three. They all build on each other. Question number three is this: would you stop working if you could? Would you stop working if you could? Very recently, actually, just during this week, I listened to the life story of a man in the UK who actually made the decision to sell his business and retire from his profession in his mid 40s. Now, he believes that it was a great decision, but he also acknowledged that many people might not be in a position to do something like that. But that's what he decided to do. He decided to sell his business and retire from his profession in his mid 40s. And I wonder, what about you? Would you stop working if that was an option? Many people would. Personally speaking, if you're asking me my opinion related to my life, I would not. So when I think about my daydream and what I like doing, I would not stop working. The forms of work that fill my week at present, at this point, are things that I choose to do, with a few small exceptions. There's a few things that I feel like I do out of a sense of obligation, but most things that I'm doing, the big things, are things that no one's forcing me to do these things. I enjoy doing these things, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do these things. But I'm also grateful that these are things that I had the ability to do based on what I was choosing to do. And I will say this: there are a few things on my current schedule that I've already given a time horizon, meaning that beyond a certain date, I'm not going to be continuing to invest my time in certain tasks. There are several tasks that I'm committed to at present, but I already have a date in my mind where I'm going to be giving some of those things away and pausing some of those things, or stepping away from some of those things. And so I'm just wondering, would you stop working if you could? Now, the fourth question is this, and this is a biggie: how might more flexibility improve your health and relationships? I think this is a question many people don't consider when they're building an online business. But as you can imagine, this is a highly important concept to consider. Now, it would not surprise me, if you're listening to us right now, that to hear that some of your present responsibilities conflict with your desire to maintain optimal health. That is pretty common. That is a usual thing that many of us wrestle with. You can only spend your time once, and if your responsibilities at present make it difficult for you to work out or eat right, or get the right amount of sleep, your health obviously may suffer. This is something I will confess to you that I have struggled with throughout my adult years, particularly because I tend to fill much of my available free time with additional activities, and maybe you struggle with that as well. So, if that's the case, if that's something that you wrestle with also, wouldn't it be nice to enjoy more flexibility so that you could better focus on your health? And in a related way, can you identify relationships in your life that could be improved or better invested in if you enjoyed more time freedom? How would that impact your relationship with your spouse? How would that impact your relationship with your children? How would that impact your relationships with other family members and friends? Some things worth considering. So the fourth question was this: how might more flexibility improve your health and relationships? And I would suspect that for many people, greater flexibility, greater time freedom in particular, in that case, might contribute to healthier, just physical health, healthier mental health as well, and healthier relationships. There are many benefits that come with starting an online business or starting an online platform. Lots and lots of benefits that come with it. But these are just a few things that you might want to consider, because they're things that you may enjoy as the fruit of your labors as you build out your online platform, as you build out your online business. It takes time to build something valuable online, but once you do so, you may be able to answer the four questions that I'm asking in this week's episode. You may be able to answer these things with a bit more clarity. Time, location, and financial freedom should be topics that we give some thought to as we spend time just working hard to realize the dream of building healthy online businesses. Because when that frees up for you, when your time frees up, when your location obligations free up, when your finances free up, that also frees you up to say yes to a lot more things that at one point you had to say no because you didn't have those kinds of freedom. And as your online business grows and as your online platform grows, I would love to see you obtain freedom in each of those three areas. So keep pressing forward in doing that. And if there's any way we can help you here at Platform Launchers, don't hesitate to reach out. I get to hear from people who utilize our content quite regularly now, which is really sweet. I love that all throughout the course of the week. Actually, just received some very helpful suggestions the other day from someone who took one of our courses. And we get to hear from people who read our blog and people who listen to our podcast, people that watch us on YouTube. Love hearing from you. But again, one of the things that I would love personally for you is for you to experience time, location, and financial freedom as your online business grows. And as you do what you're doing online, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have the flexibility to actually sit down and just ponder these questions and take some active steps that actually help you live these things out in a way that feels meaningful for you? I know that they've made a difference for me as I've experienced more freedom in these areas over time. It's allowed me to be able to say yes to things that really matter to me. And it's allowed me to also say no to things that at one point I did out of a sense of obligation, but realize, you know what, that's not for this season of life. That was for an earlier season of life, not for this season. So there's some yeses I can say yes to, some things that I could say no to as well, because I have a few more options. And again, I'd like that for you as well. Please stop by platformlaunchers.com if you want to check out some of the things I mentioned at the start of this episode. And don't hesitate to email me. My email is john@platformlaunchers.com. I'd absolutely love to hear from you. But that is it for us this week. Thanks again for tuning in. Great to see you here on YouTube or via the podcast. Always enjoy our time together. And we look forward to catching up with you again right here again next week. And in the meantime, have a wonderful 7 days, and we'll catch you next time.